How's it going, everyone? It's your boy Venomous Stare bringing you another StarCraft 2 VOD. This time we're doing 2v2, a game type that gets featured relatively frequently on this channel. It is a game type that definitely does not get enough love in the StarCraft 2 scene, because the scene, of course, is largely focused on 1v1 play, and that is what the highest level of pro gamers tend to focus on and play, and that's totally fine. But I really like the StarCraft 2 2v2 ladder, and I enjoy playing it with my buddy here down in the bottom left, Elusive Smoke, who is also my cousin, and he's featured on some other segments I do on this channel, some real-life football stuff. He's elected to take a gas, which means he's probably going to be going for gate here and not forge. You don't ever really see people cannon rush or open forge first if they take a gas, because if they go forge first, they're going to want to just focus on minerals and either get cannons early or get the nexus early. Just a very basic, broad tip. Elusive Smoke is in the bottom left, as I said. Savage Wood is in the bottom left, his ally, that's me, who of course has gone for hatchery first, the macro opener. We're facing off against Kurisu and Suzaku, two weebs presumably, two guys that really like anime. Suzaku, like Elusive Smoke, it appears has gone for a gateway opener, but it is interesting to see how much earlier the Cybercore is for the red Protoss player, as Elusive Smokes has just started and Suzaku's is about 80% done. So that means that any tech that Suzaku opts for is going to be a bit quicker than Elusive Smoke. Elusive Smoke does have fewer workers as well, so Suzaku is ahead here in the early game, and he's going to go for double starport. And when I say starport, I mean Stargate. Starport, of course, is the structure that produces air units for Terran. Stargate, of course, is the one for toss. And no upgrades going on here. And no upgrades going on here for the Protoss player, Elusive Smoke, as Elusive Smoke does start Warp Gate there. And it looks as though he's hiding something, a Twilight in the top left. Now, generally, if you're going for Charge or Blink or Resonating Glaives, you don't have to hide it like this. You know, maybe you hide it over here in your main. But if you're going to the trouble to hide it in the top left of the map and really be secretive about it, probably means DT. And as the Twilight is about to finish and the probe is clearly being attended here for Elusive Smoke, the Dark Shrine goes down and a base goes down here for Suzaku. Now, oddly enough, this base is placed at the third base location. A Robo starts up for Elusive Smoke. A Lair starts up for Savage Wood as he starts to drone up his natural, throw down a Baneling Nest, make a Spine Crawler. This is what you call a proxy. Now, a proxy essentially means a proximity play, something that you build close to your opponent on the map to hide information. Frequently, a proxy play will be maybe you hide a factory or a starport to rush them with certain units out of those structures. But considering most of the units for Protoss come out of gates, this is a proxy play to hide technology. Elusive Smoke doesn't know that this push is coming. Actually, he just found out, but he doesn't want the red team to know that he's making Dark Templar, and Savage Wood just now plants one spine. This is sort of a weird delayed 4 racks push here, as Kurisu delayed a lot. The Spine Crawler goes down, and if we look in the production tab, no stim, no +1, no tanks, no medevacs. Kurisu invested an incredible amount into this Marine push, and it synchronized really heavily with his 2 Stargate Phoenix play from Suzaku, who is looking to really punish the blue team with this Phoenix. But the DTs are going to come out here for Elusive Smoke, who surprises the red team, and right as the red team is knocking on the front door of the blue team, the DTs come out. And the Marines get chased back by the Lings here of Savage Wood, as the DTs coming out and stomping the push for 1 little second was what Savage Wood needed to regain a foothold, and now he's going to take on the outside base. And it's going to go down here for the red team, as I'm absolutely butchering the sound. But Kurisu has a lot of Marines up here. Remember, he went 4 barracks. Whenever you go 4 barracks and cut pretty much everything else in terms of upgrades and tech, you're going to have a lot of Marines. And a DT is going to be thrown up here for elusive smoke. A cannon's going to be put at the front door to try to help. But a scan occurs here. The DT is going to be run away. Savagewood sort of running up with the Lings, threatening to run in, but never really doing it. A DT is harassing the first expansion of Suzaku, who took the risk of hiding a base out here. But the Overlord of Savagewood saw this. This is a huge deal to scout this. If this third base goes unscouted, it makes it seem like, wow, he's committing everything. He's completely all in on one base as Suzaku, which would fool the blue team into playing in an incorrect way. And it looks like the red base of Suzaku is going to try to be defended. An Oracle comes out, but it uses the aggressive beam ability, which is a bit odd because even though an observer is out, the observer wasn't in position to adequately defend the base, and there wasn't a lot of firepower out here because Phoenix are really good for picking up big money units like tanks and immortals. They're not really so good at defending Zergling harass, because remember, every little graviton ability that gets used to pick up units cost energy, and that might not seem that obvious to people who don't play a lot of Protoss and just take a lot of damage to Phoenix. But even if you make a lot of Phoenix, if you sit there constantly trying to pick up Zerglings, you'll start to run out of energy very quickly, and it's very hard to click on Lings, especially if they're moving around. So Suzaku tried to hide an expansion there for a big reward, and due to the scouting overload of Savagewood, it doesn't really pay off. And we can see that Suzaku was trying to rally probes out there prematurely. And with the DT being out for the blue team, it prevented the probes from being rallied out, and we see one of the DTs goes down due to scan. And whenever you commit absolutely everything to an early game attack, you really cut workers completely, as we see Kurisu had to pull his workers due to DT harass. Granted, Kurisu did get up a couple of expansions, but he's really low on workers. He's down to 15 workers. The harassment has absolutely done Kurisu dirty. And a lot of players might not understand the trade-offs of going for these big early game attacks, these big swell of units. And very simply, as we see Phoenix flying out here, Archon's already out, cannon in the mineral line, multiple spores up for Savagewood. I can really put it to you this way: as Warp Prism of Elusive Smoke starts to get hunted, it dropped off some zealots. Lots of stuff out on the map here, getting vision for the blue team, who are trying to pull stuff back. Looks like Savagewood might creep block the third, which would be pretty funny. But think of it like this. If both Terran, let's just say there's 2 Terran players, if both Terran players have the relative same amount of income in the early game, and one of them elects to get STEM and a factory and try to get medevacs and gets an expansion, and the other one just makes a bunch of barracks, doesn't get any upgrades, and just tries to do a big attack, what happens if the player who elected to get upgrades and tech up holds? Well, obviously, that sort of means that the player who did all of the aggressive teching and held the attack is going to be ahead. And as the Phoenix harass here, the man of Elusive Smoke is trying to ward him off with Archons. Archons, of course, do splash. They're a phenomenal counter to big Phoenix clouds. They're a little slow is the only thing, but they're massive units, so they can't be picked up and bullied by Phoenix. You park an Archon and a cannon in each mineral line, you'll be good. The only problem is you're severely outmaneuvered by the Phoenix, so you really have to sort of space the Archons out well. So what we're seeing here with the Terran player is he delayed his gas and delayed his tech for a big swell of units in the early game. That's why he sort of weirdly had like 17 drones, or 17 Marines, as I saw drones being massacred and just said the word drones. Savagewood does have a couple spores, and the Phoenix are taking a little damage, but as Zerg, this is a weird thing that you deal with whenever the Protoss player goes for mass Phoenix. you sort of want to counter with Hydra because intuitively it's your best anti-air, but Phoenix do bonus damage to light units, and if the player is smart and they get attack upgrades for the Phoenix, they really shred through light units. As we can see, this player, Suzuku, like many players in 2v2, neglect upgrades and really just focus on getting mass units out, which I don't think is a good style. A lot of spores have finished for Savage Wood, thankfully, and this is what you want to aim for, because once you get about 20 Hydras, you can fend off Phoenix relatively well. Again, you run into the problem, like the Archons, of being outmaneuvered. But if you don't have Hydra range, you don't have Hydra speed, maybe you don't have upgrades, or maybe you don't have over 15 Hydras, your Hydras are just going to get picked off if they're going for this mass Phoenix style, especially if they have range +1 and multitasking. In team games, you see a lot of players who aren't very talented playing Protoss trying to mass air. This is sort of one of those quintessential beginner strategies that you're always going to see throughout the game's lifespan. And throughout the test of time, this is one of those strategies that is hard to counter if you don't know what they're doing. Easy to execute as far as macro, and easy to execute as far as micro. And it's very strong even if you're not particularly talented. This guy's had a fleet beacon forever. He hasn't gotten either upgrade. He's supply blocked. He's no god. Kurisu is taking a third. And I think it's interesting to note that even if players like this make mistakes, it doesn't devalue the cast. A lot of people will leave comments like, well, you're only at high diamond MMR. This player is really bad because they saw him make a mistake in the game. Therefore, the cast isn't relevant, or none of the tips that you gave during the cast are relevant. I disagree. I think that picking these normal games that have, you know, they're not bad players, they're not gold, but, or bronze or whatever, but whenever you pick games that I play, your average Joe sort of plays, the players will make mistakes, and I'm able to jump in and sort of tell you what I was thinking. Like right here, I teched to Vipers, quick hive, I knew it was going air. I threw mass parasitic bombs there to harass and get the shields off the Phoenix. Now this did tremendous damage to the Phoenix, even though the AI sort of weirdly auto-split them and made them derp out and see the proxy. This was an important moment, and to wrap up my thought, it is important to note that I do cast pro games too, very frequently, and we are able to draw on the conclusions that the absolute highest levels of player make, but the 2v2 scene isn't exactly booming, and my account is relatively high rated for 2v2 in terms of playing with an actual pre-made ally and not just getting random retards. 2v2 is a very interesting game type that is fun to learn on, as Elusive Smoke is getting more gates and teching up into Storm here. He's double upgrading. Love to see that. Notice he made double cannons in his mineral line. And noticed how bruised these Phoenix are. This is going to really prohibit them from harassing, because a lot of my Vipers are alive. Notice I didn't lose any of the Vipers. I'm going to be able to recharge energy and be ready for more parasitic bombs. And since the Phoenix derped out into the proxy DT, I know that the red team is going to make this a priority to go attack, so I sort of position my army over here. On this map, people almost always take their third and fourth base over here. So frequently, since you have to run through here to attack, what you see is people run down through here, kill the rocks, and push up on this high ground and sort of kill both bases. Notice you can't get to this ramp or this ramp without going through this ramp. A lot of people come to the conclusion that you really just want to control the middle, grab both towers, and then grab your opponent's ramp, and then maybe just cram a couple things over here. This map has two pretty easy expansions and a third and fourth base that are up on a plateau, but it has this very narrow, sort of weird choke that is about the size of Hank Hill's urethra. I mean, it is small. You can't really fit much through there. So, my option this game, I would say, because I'm going for Hydras already, I just want to go into Lurker. Because Lurkers are really good at cutting off little chokes like this, as well as controlling ramped areas and controlling zones in general. I also elected to get a Quick Hive, an Ultra Den for backup, an Ultra Cavern, but really I got a Quick Hive for Vipers, because the Vipers are your main tool against air builds, but against static armies that you want to force a fight against, they're also very powerful. This person, Kurusu, did such an aggressive early game build, I'm not sure what they're going to do. They're sort of going into a very desperate half bio, half mech play, because they know that Thors and tanks are very good on this map, but they need a bio backbone. And on this map, the 3rd/4th base, even though they're up on this plateau, they're sort of out a bit, and you know that this is probably the one that's going to be attacked first. So he's elected to make a PF. One of the best things that Terran can do in team games is just be very conservative about your bases, and don't be afraid to make your 3rd a planetary, because it really makes life a lot harder on your opponent. So the red Terran player, Kurusu, I would say makes a bit of a mistake here by not being more proactive researching on his bio as far as combat shields and concussive shells. But he's always trying to attack and be aggressive, and whenever people are always trying to push out and be aggressive regardless of how successful it is, it means that they are more prone to mess up their macro. As Kurusu moved out and really didn't kill much. Also, he's producing off of 3 factories, and he's double upgrading mech units. And there he does start combat shield, but when you go triple factory Thor, a lot of players I feel like are definitely not going to be as quick to remember their bio upgrades. Savagewood has started his ultras here, and I've sort of come to the conclusion that even if you want Viper and are going for a Hydra Lurker centric play, you want a couple ultras to really sponge damage, and Chitinous Plating is cheap enough where you always want to get it if you're going to get the Ultra Cavern. And notice, you want to keep double upgrading here. Make sure your evos are always active. So this is a huge moment in the game. Sort of caught the person off guard. I don't really have lurkers. I have just a lot of Hydra and some Banes. I don't have ultras either, so I can't boss my way in here with a lot of beefy stuff. And I don't want to get in a position where my slow-ass clunky Hydras get pummeled by the PF while the SCVs repair. So what I want to do is run up with my Hydras, use Blinding Cloud on the PF to blind it, and just assassinate the PF, and either bolt right there depending on what my ally does here, or I can sort of press my luck if my ally comes up with me because he has Storm and I have Vipers. And then I can go from there. So let's see what happens. Blinding Cloud on the PF so I don't take damage. Of course, I had to get this close for the PF to shoot. Big kill on the PF there, because the Terran is now limited to 2 bases that are almost mined out. So here I see lots of Phoenix. Ally storms for me. Notice that that's blinding clouded so the Thors aren't firing. Phoenix take a lot of damage. But here we run into the issue where there are a ton of carriers. And even though my ally Lucius Smoke gets good storms off, great storms off, they're basically bathing in it, it's impossible for me to get to what I need to get to between the depots, the starport, and the mech here. I can't get right under the carriers and fire as the ultras are doing what they can. And as Zerg, that's really the issue that you're always facing against carriers. If you're going Hydras, you really just want to be able to get under them and destroy them quickly, because you don't want to fight Interceptors. They're virtually free, as we see the carriers moving up here, as the Lucius Smoke only really has one High Templar here to defend this base. And he's not really high on money. And Suzaku is right up here, just trying to take the base brazenly in front of Elusive Smoke, as Savagewood has basically elected to take the corner bases. So as Zerg, you get into this position where the carriers, like this guy doesn't have any support units at all, and he's not microing his carriers at all. And even now, Savagewood ran his Hydras below him and only got 1 kill. Maybe 2 kills. That was wildly ineffective for the Zerg player, as Elusive Smoke, for whatever reason, elected to build his second DT shrine out here. But his first one lived thanks to his allies, so weirdly the second one dies, but he can still make DTs. And this is something you should always aim to do with carriers, which is sit out on the dead airspace on the map and harass stuff, because obviously if your opponent only has ground defense, they're only going to be able to stand here, and then you can just stand off in the dead zone and pick off stuff. And Elusive Smoke intelligently has High Templar spread out, but he doesn't really do a good job of using them. Savagewood's coming over, but see, this is what I mean, is Savagewood's just really killing Interceptors. This doesn't really do anyone any good. He really needs to be doing whole damage on the carriers themselves. If you don't know, somehow the carriers just shoot out little Interceptors to do their duties. And Elusive Smoke is doing damage with his DTs. Snipes the base of the Toss, which is big, because remember, this other base has been sniped, and now he's going to run over here, but he's going to think better of it, as he does have this bottom right corner, and Elusive Smoke is wreaking hell with the DTs as his main is being devastated. Now the Hydras, of course, being slow, clunky, papery units, they have trouble getting under the carriers, so the best thing to do is couple them with Vipers and have the Vipers pull the carriers into the army of Hydras. So that's what's going to happen. 2 abducts going down, 2 carriers go down, 2 more carriers being pulled, the 3rd one goes down, a 4th one goes down. Lots of carriers here for Savagewood as 5 carriers go down. And suddenly the red Protoss player is way lower on carriers. He only has 6. Elusive Smoke is doing a bit of harassment, but unfortunately the carriers come back on him. Great upgrades for Elusive Smoke. The Charge Storm DT combo, but of course he's got DT Blink, as well as max attack upgrades, 2 armor, 1 shield. You love to see that. Savagewood has 222, as well as Chitinous, Adrenal Gland, Ling Speed, Hydra Speed. Not a lot on the red team. It's just +1 air weapons and decent bio upgrades, and we're seeing Elusive Smoke diving onto this red base, and Elusive Smoke kills another red Protoss base as Kurusu sets up his base north side. Thankfully for the red team, Suzaku was smart enough to make obs, as Blinding Clouds are going to go down here for Savagewood, who's trying to run up here with Hydra Lurker. But Blinding Clouds don't last very long, and you can take a crap load of damage if you're not lucky. And Savagewood is going to try the same trick, abducting expensive unit. He's going to hopefully pick off an orbital here, as it's super low. It looks like he's greeting for the Thors, kills the orbital, as well as a lot of SCVs. So 2 red bases die. The blue team is using excellent teamwork, coordinating attacks, as more Hydras and 3-3 are on the way for Savagewood. Lots of carriers out here for Savagewood, as he doesn't have that many Hydras. Vipers are out here, but not much energy, and the infamous Parasitic Bomb spell is going to do not much. It's really just going to get the shields off of the Toss carriers. And this is why Savagewood was using Abduct and just trying to pick off individual carriers with Hydras. You can cast a Parasitic Bomb on every one of these freaking carriers, and it's not going to do much. A good Protoss player is going to have some Speed Zealots and some High Templar with Storm below They're carriers, and they're probably going to have a mothership too. Suzaku is killing off the bottom right base. Now thankfully, one good thing he has done is make a robo and get obs. Frequently, Protoss players will get very stubborn and just make like mass Stargate, skip the robo, especially in 4v4, and they'll just get ripped apart by DTs or Banshees. Or they'll make an Oracle and run out of energy over and over. Suzaku knows where his bread is buttered. This dead area in the air here is really good for him, because even with a lot of Vipers, he has to be close enough to be abducted over onto land. He's continuing to kill off stuff that borders his base, which is intelligent. Kurisu is trying to reestablish a base. He's really not mining much at all. Savagewood has both of these bases. He's still kicking on the 3rd and 4th. Lots of tanks are out here for Kurisu. The Protoss player is continuing to mass up carriers, but he doesn't have a ton of income. He's been harassed pretty significantly. He is outdoing the income of the blue Protoss player, who for all intents and purposes is pretty dead. He's down to 6 workers. He's been severely harassed by carriers. A lot of his stuff is unpowered. And Suzaku's going to go back and try to harass again. He's going to kill Creep. He's going to kill the Temple Archives, which is huge. More abducts are going down. Let's see if Savagewood kills anything. He's killing some interceptors. Kills 2 carriers, 3 carriers, so that's something. Looks like he needs to get some more abducts off. Kills a 4th carrier. Couple more abducts, but if the macro isn't perfect for Savagewood here, he could find himself a little outmassed, but he pulls off some nice carriers there. When I say pull off, I mean he literally pulled them off from one coast to the other. And if you're not careful, whenever you're microing Vipers, you can overextend and just barely pull them like we saw Savagewood do for a second. But for the most part, Savagewood has done a pretty good job of pulling the carriers into his army. But it's very hard to attack into Kurisu's tanks. The red Protoss player can continue to poke and prod. A mothership would of course be very helpful with that. And the red Protoss player, it looks like, might consider retaking this base. It's one of those weird situations where the minerals are already low and you're not sure whether you want it. You probably just want a different base. And he's kicking it with this gold. Of course, like I said, you want to sort of control the middle base on this map as Elusive Smoke finally gets another base up, fires up some probes, and with just 3 probes out on the map, Elusive Smoke is going to be hard pressed to contribute anything. Savagewood does have 3-3, he's going to kill some bees, and he's in a very peculiar scenario where he does want to attack because he is near max. He's going to pull the carriers here. But with a huge monolith ridge line of tanks, he's in a weird spot. He's having trouble with the carriers. He's trying to pull them, but he can't really succeed in killing them. Really just wastes a lot of energy. And Savagewood is in a bad spot. He has a huge economy, but he can't really attack, even though he has a lot of Vipers. With 2 armies here, even though he's constantly been shaving off carriers, it's very difficult. He's going to throw down some nice blinding clouds, but he's damn near out of Viper energy. He's going to try to move in with lurkers here, but the blinding clouds don't last that long, and he does get some more on the back line, but he's going to take huge losses here. As I take a drink of water, Savagewood's army double teamed. He makes a little bit of headway against the Terran, but not much. As attacking into these chokes is very dangerous. And the Toss army flanks him from the north and cleans him up. Savagewood is trying to take this contested base. Notice that red team is trying to long distance mine it. Savagewood says, hey, get the hell out of here. Of course, tanks are incredibly good at defending a neutral position like this, and carriers, when a neutral airspace like this, or this is used, good at poking and prodding, especially when coupled with an OBS. You would be surprised how many people just try to make an Oracle and do it that way. Oracles and carriers go well together, but obs are essential, I feel like. As Kurusu mule hammered the crap out of that base, Savagewood trying to defend his buddy, and earlier his buddy lost his Templar Archive. Savagewood doesn't want him to lose all of his gates too. Sadly, even if you're very behind like Elusive Smoke is in this game, if your Templar Archives lives, which maybe if you had hit it back here it would have, you can warp in a few Templar and just be an absolutely monumental force, because a few storms change everything. The red team, though, has established a decent foothold. This base and this base is still not taken. Savagewood is alive and kicking, and Elusive Smoke is back up in with the DTs. That has been his biggest contribution this game. This is DT harassment. Of course, Blink being an essential part of that, a very underutilized ability as the DT gets cleaned up there. Turret here, gonna make it hard for Elusive Smoke. Upgrades, of course, also make DT harassment a bit better, but the DT Blink makes it where if you get in trouble, you haul ass. And here we see a base with no turret. This is just absolute feast for a Dark Templar. This Dark Templar is going to do a lot of damage. And here we see while that's going on, carriers are going to harass the base of Savagewood, who was trying to move up spores here, but it's a little late. Hydras and Vipers are coming out here for Savagewood. What is it going to be? A few pulls here, some of them longer than others, like Brett Favre's passes, and that one was excellent. Savagewood kills a ton of carriers again. He's going to try a little bit more here. He's going to do another wayward pass there. As that one, again, like a Brett Favre pass, one of the cross-body running across the field plays. Elusive Smoke's attack was cleaned up here, as this exciting macro game has boasted an incredibly large number of units killed. Lots of Hydras might be in danger here as siege tanks siege up on the high ground. Savagewood says, holy shit, takes a ton of damage and has to run. Elusive Smoke continuing to harass. The D2 tries to blink away but dies. Savagewood again in a terrible choke point. This is just feast spot for the siege tank. This is a perfect spot. This is where they want it, but they are pretty clumped. Lots of it ducks for Savagewood, as he said, well, the blinding clouds didn't work last time, but he tries a couple clouds for the heck of it. Too many tanks, though, as he doesn't have the energy with the Protoss Air pummeling him. Some mining going on, lots of tank harassment going. Another scan going down as a DT was trying to harass the tanks, but an obs is here too. Notice these spore crawlers are making it a big pain for the Protoss Air and the observers to encroach, but the siege tanks say, okay, we don't care about spores, watch this. Boom! They're going to pummel these spore crawlers. Zealots are going to come in here, but Elusive Smoke in a very low economy. Really should have tried to sink his attack better with Savagewood, who for God's sake is making 12 freaking ultras as his middle base dies. His ally was doing his best as I sneezed to defend him. Tanks are very good on this map because of how much of it relies on controlling a central area. Zealots try to kill tanks, but they really just pick up a measly amount. Lots of ultras here for Savagewood with great upgrades. Savagewood getting a Spire, Smoke, getting DTs. Savagewood is trying to do some link harass to split the army of the red team. Savagewood, of course, still has plenty of Hydras to combat against the air. He's going to throw in his army here as a nice blinding cloud goes down. Potentially the best one of the game as another good one goes down. Beautiful pulls here. Killing the Protoss Air. Abduct finally being used in beautiful harmony with blinding cloud. And the Vipers are very low, and the Vipers are pretty dead as there are only a couple of them left. Savagewood with a crushing army here. Ultras just absolutely falling on top of the red army, and Kurusu GG's. The Protoss player, of course, Suzaku, is going to try to stay in this. He thinks his air can do it. And a little bit of mech is going to come up here, but well upgraded ultras against just a few mech units actually aren't terrible, because with mech it's one of those things where once you get to about a dozen units, that's when the tank door starts to get scary. A couple tanks isn't all that great at this point in the game. Carriers dying, as Suzaku, like many players who play in multiplayer and try to go for mass air styles, really don't understand how to properly complement it. Look at his upgrades. What did he get? Just +1. He didn't even adequately upgrade his air. He was trying to get +2. You need Storm with the few Zealots. You need Warp Gate for at least a handful of gates. You need Zealot legs, so at least you have something to be under your beautiful carrier army. Mothership when you can swing it. You need the carrier or the Phoenix upgrade. A lot of players, like I said, like to go into this air style, but they don't execute it all that well. Savagewood took a ton of bases, and Lucius Smoke came back from less than double-digit workers to really make an impact in the game with his harass. His DT harassment throughout the game allowed Savagewood the breathing room to take the win. And the Vipers for Savagewood allowed him to fight these severely supply outmatched fights. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe and like, it really helps.